Hey everyone, this is Luke again, and today's video is going to be a little bit different. Today we're going to be talking about who is the focus of each and every Ninjago installment. As you can see here, I have Kai, Jay, Cole, Zane, Lloyd, Nia, and Team, and I'm just going to be judging each and every single installment, and we're going to judge who is the focus of these installments, and we're going to eventually find out who has the most focus out of all of the ninja. So let's start with the pilots. Now, the pilots is a fairly obvious choice, and that is Kai. And that is Kai because, he was the main character of the pilots. So, let's add him a 1. Let's add a 1 there. Now we go on to season 1, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky because the thing with season 1 is that every character got their own focus. And for that reason, it gets here's the team. Number 1. They get 1 installment there. Now I wonder if I'm gonna change the Kai one because technically the pilots are a special, and so I'm like, should they be counted as half? But I'm going to count them as 1 simply because they are part of the series, and while the length really shouldn't matter here. So then we move on to season 2. Well, when I mean that length shouldn't matter, I'm talking about like how much focus they have. And this is especially true when it comes to our next installment, Legacy of the Green Ninja, where the first half of the season is team-based, but the second half is Lloyd based because it's revolving around this story with the final battle, facing his father, facing the Overlord, and whatnot. So for me, it's kind of like the first half is a team season right up until around Child's Play. I feel like from Child's Play onwards, it's kind of Lloyd. It's Lloyd centric. So I'm gonna do half and half. I'm gonna do a half and halves here. So I'm gonna do 1.5 here, 1.5, and then Lloyd I'll do 0.5. 0.5 for half of an installment. Now we move on to Rebooted. Now this one is also going to be a little bit tricky because a big part of Rebooted was Lloyd and his golden power. That was primarily in the first half. But once Lloyd kind of gave up those powers away, it kind of really less centered around him. And while yes, Zane technically does get focused, it's really not prevalent that it's really not obvious that he's getting focused until right at the very end. So that's where it's going to be a very, very difficult decision for me because it's like I know I'm going to give half of it to Lloyd because of the Golden Power arc, but Zane was the spokesperson, the mascot of that season. But yet he doesn't really get a lot of focus besides, his stuff with Pixel. So I don't want to really call it like a Lloyd season because that's not really accurate. That's not really an accurate terminology. But Lloyd was primarily the focus, especially in the first half. So I'm going to kind of go with Lloyd and a team because Zane's focus didn't really happen that much until the end, where he sacrificed himself, of course. So I'm going to give Lloyd a half, so that bumps him up to 1, and Team a half, so that'll bump it up to 2. So right now, as we currently stand, we have Kai having 1 installment, Lloyd having 2 halves, which combines total into 1, and Team having 1 full installment and 2 half installments. So now we go into season 4. Now, I remember there was a lot of debate when it came to this season. A lot of people thought it was a Kai season, a Lloyd season, and even a Garmadon season. But here's the thing. What made that season special, I think, similarly with season 1, is that everyone got focused. I mean, Zane and Cole had their own little escapee adventure. Jay had his little bit of shine with, him and Cole. Nia kind of had the same thing as well. Kai as well. And then there's Lloyd and Garmadon. So I'm going to have to count season 4, Tournament of Elements, as a team season 3. Now we move on to season 5. Now, I believe it's a myth that Season 5 is a Lloyd season, because while Lloyd is kinda the, the mascot of this season, he isn't really showcased all of that much. And I know some people were going to say, well, what about Nia? There was that whole arc of her becoming a ninja. And while, yes, I do agree with that, the thing is that it didn't really seem like they focused on it all that much. I mean, there were some moments where it was focused here and there, but most of the time she just kind of got pushed aside. So I guess you could say there was development there. So I guess you could say maybe a half installment there. Maybe. But I'm kind of divided here whether to give it all for a team season or to give a half to Nia, mostly because of her water ninja arc. Especially considering she's the one that saved the day at the end of the season. So it's kind of like in that same vein with Lloyd in Rebooted, where Lloyd had his arc with the Golden Power, and then the rest of it was kind of Team Central based. So I feel like with this, most of it was Team Central based. I feel like this one is kind of more like very... I wouldn't even call it half. It's like most of it was revolved around the team as a whole. And while there is some focus of it on Nia, I'm not sure if I could really call Season 5 a Nia season, because they didn't really focus on her all that much. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a Team 4. Mostly because I just don't think there's enough evidence in my eyes to prove that Season 5 was a Nia season in any way. The most I could have given it was maybe a half. But even then, I thought that was a bit of a stretch. Now we move on to Season 6. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, this is obvious. Not so fast. Not so fast, I say. Well, yes, definitely Jay gets focused here. But remember all those videos I made about Jay and Nia and how my biggest criticism of their characters is that they kind of revolve around each other so much? That's why I believe that Skybound is not truthfully just a Jay season, but rather a Jay and Nia season, because it revolves around their relationship. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give Jay a half season, 0.5, and Nia a half season, 0.5 as well, since they kind of shared it. Now we move on to Day of the Departed, and this one is also pretty obvious. It's Cole, and it should have been that way from the get-go. I don't know why the other ninja had to interfere with Cole's stuff in there. I don't know why, but it is what it is, I guess. Now we move on to Hands of Time. Now, Hands of Time, again, you would think it's obvious, but it's not. This one, I'm going to have to give it all to Kai, and here's why. Kai pretty much had the most development out of everyone. Now, Nia, it was supposed to be kind of split between Kai and Nia because it revolved around their parents. But it just seemed like Nia wasn't really that involved with the storyline. It mostly was revolved around Kai. And because of that, that's the reasoning I have for this. Now, you could argue there is some development for Lloyd trying to develop his master arc. But Jay and Zane are just kind of there, really. So then we have to Season 8, and this one is, again, fairly obvious. It's Lloyd. It's Lloyd. That one's pretty damn obvious, because, you know, it literally centered around, the name of the season is literally Sons of Garmadon. So that one is fairly easy. Now we have Hunted. This one is a little bit tricky, because I do think the Resistance storyline is definitely about Lloyd. But there's also the First Realm storyline, and it was really about Wu. So let me add Wu in real quick. Real quick. So I'm going to give Wu 0.5, and Lloyd 0.5 as well, simply because they kind of shared it. Now, you could argue Garmadon as well had some focus, but I believe it was mostly about them finding their way back up after hardships, which means Lloyd and Wu. So then we have March of the Oni. Now, this one I truthfully think is kind of also split again. It's kind of split again between Lloyd and this time his father, Garmadon. So let me put Garmadon here. So he gets 0.5, and since 2.5 plus 0.5 is 3, right now it's total at 3. So that's where we're at right now. So basically, Lloyd had a full season and then two halves, So right now. Oh yeah, and there was also some halves with Rebooted and Legacy as well. Now we go on to Secrets, and Secrets, in my opinion, the Fire chapter was definitely team-based, so I'm going to put it there, but the second half, the Ice chapter, is controversially Lloyd, because honestly, it shouldn't have been Lloyd, considering he was the last person that needed, as he basically already had, 3 seasons of development in a row, which, why did he need another? That's the thing, why did he need it? He really didn't, so. Then there's season 12. Now, this one is a very interesting case. The thing is that it was supposed to be marketed as a J season, but like with Zane and Rebooted, it really doesn't happen until the very end. And I can't even call this one a team season either, because because nobody really has a chance to shine. Nobody really develops from this season. None of the main characters develop. You could literally call Prime Empire the side character season, because literally that's what the whole entire purpose of the season was trying to do, was to develop their side characters. And while I do think developing side characters is necessary, the problem with that is that there were too many. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add in a no one, and then I'm going to put 1. Nobody was focused. No clear focus, basically. Let me rephrase that. No clear focus. And that is 1. So now we have to master the mountain, and this one is stupidly obvious. It's Call. I mean, come on. How can you argue with that? Now we have the island. And the island is a very, very weird case, because while Lloyd technically gets the most amount of screen time, that doesn't necessarily mean development. He doesn't really develop as a character, although there is one particular scene I keep hearing about where he has this speech to Twitchy Tim about getting beaten down and being put down and whatnot, and you could argue that is development. But to me, it's not significant enough to really qualify, in my opinion. It's not significant enough to say, oh, that's Lloyd's season. Because the writing, if there was any writing with the island, it just really seemed it was more about the actual environment of the island itself rather than focusing on the ninja as characters. So it's going to be a second no clear focus season. Or installment, I should say, because I don't want to bring up that whole island season special debate ever again. Now we have Seabound, and this one is stupidly obvious. It's Nia. So, then we have Crystallized. Crystallized is very, very weird, because the first half, I'll definitely say, is team season. And I feel like from the Council of the Crystal King, from that episode onwards, it slowly became Lloyd-centric again. So it's kind of like the first half is team season, and the second half is very Lloyd. And with a hint of Garmadon as well. But it was mostly about Lloyd trying to find his Oni form, basically, rather than trying to, fix the relationships between him and his father, because he really wasn't trying to fix the relationships. So I'm going to do team, and this will bump up team to 5, and Lloyd, it'll bump him up to 4. So, excuse me. Stupid YouTube notifications. So, and there we have it. So, the ninja who obviously has the most development, or is the most focused of the ninja, is obviously Lloyd. This one is no surprise, considering he is technically the main character of the series, with Cole and Kai sharing the number 2, sharing the second place spot with 2 installments, with Kai having the Pilots and Hands of Time, and Cole having Data Departed and Master of the Mountain. Fourth place, I should say, is Nia with a whole entire installment, Seabound, and half of Skybound. Then we have Jay, who only has half of Skybound, when it really should have been a whole. And then, unfortunately, my favorite, Zane, no focused seasons for him. The closest I could was Rebooted, but the thing is, like I said before, he doesn't really have focus until the actual end, similarly with Jay and Prime Empire. So I can't really say for sure that he is focused. But it is disappointing that Zane has literally no focus seasons at all. And it's really disappointing, considering if you ask a lot of, OG fans when they were watching the show back in 2011, 2012, some of them may argue that Zane was easily the best written ninja out of all of the main 4. Even better than Kai, which a lot of people loved Kai back then. And they still do, but hell, even Wu and Garmadon had more focused installments than Zane, which is very upsetting. Then we have 5 team seasons overall. I think there were some halves here and there, but this to me is also no surprise, considering team seasons are just generally better overall than focus seasons, because focus seasons, especially if you're primarily targeting one specific character, like Mr. Lloyd over here, it makes people wonder if that's an absurd amount of focus will lead to people just not wanting to see the character or their stories, even if their stories are necessarily written well. And honestly, that logic is the main reason why I don't really like Lloyd being the focus of Secrets of the Forbidden Spinjitzu Ice chapter, because he already had so much focus at that time that he just simply didn't need it, and I didn't care about his storyline with Akita that much, because it was a Lloyd-centric story, and I wanted no more Lloyd-centric stories. So, yeah. Then we have 2 no clear focus seasons, which were the Prime Empire and the Island. Prime Empire mostly because it focused on side characters and not really the main characters, and the Island mostly because it focused more on the environment of the island rather than the actual characters themselves. It also didn't help that the island is pretty damn short as well, so that doesn't help. So this is who I think is the focus of every single installment of Ninjago. Do you guys agree with me, or do you disagree with me in certain aspects? Let me know in the comments down below. But anyways, I hope you guys liked this video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel by clicking the red subscribe button, and click on the notification bell to see every video that I will upload. And I'll see all you folks in the next video. Bye bye!